Okay, today we're going to have two warm-ups. Our first warm-up will use the personal object that you brought from home. All right, what we're going to do is everyone in the group is going to take turns. They're going to use their personal object and they're going to show everyone 5 different ways to use the object. Now, these don't have to be real ways. They can be made up. Just have some fun with it. Here, I'll show you. I'm going to use my favorite toy ball. I can bounce this ball. I could hide the ball. I can throw the ball. I can also stare into the ball as if it were a crystal ball, and I could look into my future. Or I can listen to the ball. I can listen to the ball tell me its secrets. All right, now it's your turn. Okay, our second warm-up is going to be a vocal warm-up. All you got to do is repeat after me. Here we go. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bang. Whoosh. Wow. Ew. All right, very good. In addition to using our bodies to help tell our stories, we also use our voice and the stage. Our voices are actually powerful instruments that can express a wide range of tones and feelings. We, as storytellers, can use the power of our voices in many different ways when telling our stories. Our voices can speak words, of course, but they can also sing a song or even make sound effects like the sound of wind whooshing or water splashing. We can also use our bodies to make sounds, like our hands to clap or our feet to stomp. Well, another technique that we can use as storytellers is the stage. And what I mean by that is using all of the other tools of performance that are not our bodies or our voices. These could be costumes or props, pictures or videos behind us on a screen, audio recordings like songs or sound effects. We can even change the lights that are above the stage to help create a certain mood or a place. All of these tools help us create our own world on the stage, the world of our story. This is the world that we will be inviting the audience into when we tell our stories. Now remember, how you use these techniques and tools is completely up to you. Sometimes, less performance is more impactful for the audience, and other times, adding more expressive elements helps us make a deeper connection with the audience. In order to discover what your approach will be, we'll have to work it out in today's final workshop. We will now look at 3 key techniques that storytellers use to add impact to their stories. We call this inflection. With a pencil, make marks on your final typed draft using the type of marking that corresponds with each technique below in your workbook. After you've made the markings, read it out loud as if you're telling the story to an audience. As you speak, pay attention to your own voice. There will be moments when you speak slower and moments when you speak faster. There'll be moments when you are expressing emotions. There'll be moments when you say a word or a sentence that is very, very important to your story. All of these moments are connected with the different techniques that we'll use to give our voices inflection. Okay, here's what we're looking for. Pacing. This is the actual speed and intensity that we're speaking with. Is the intensity relaxed and slower in some moments of the story? Does it get faster in other areas? Use 2 arrow markings for pacing. Tone. This has to do with the feelings we're expressing. Do some parts of the story have quieter and more serious tone? Do other parts feel happy and excited? Use an underline marking for tone. Emphasis. This relates to the actual words in our stories. We can choose to highlight or focus more energy on some words and sentences that we think are the most important to our story. These are words that we will emphasize. What are these words and sentences to you? Use bracket markings for emphasis. Okay, I'll demonstrate what we're looking for using my little story from workshop number 2. It was a rainy morning in my neighborhood. There weren't many people walking around in the street, and it was very cold. This story happened a few years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a few days after Christmas, so things were still pretty slow in town. I was going to my uncle's house to visit him. He was in his late 60s and didn't leave his house much. He walked with a cane and had a bad leg, so he stayed home most of the time. I hadn't seen him in almost 5 years. Work was going pretty well that year, and I was able to get my family more Christmas gifts than normal. I hadn't gotten my uncle a gift in many years, so I got him a new coffee mug. When I got to his house, I knocked on the door, but nobody answered. This was weird, since I knew he never really left his house. I kept knocking, and then his daughter answered. I hadn't seen her in a long time. She told me that he had had a heart attack yesterday morning. They took him to the hospital and performed surgery. She was on her way there and asked me if I wanted to go. Even though there were reasons for me not to go, I decided to go with her. I never really got along with my uncle's children. There were some things in our family history that caused us to drift away from each other. But they were my family, and I know my mother would have wanted me to visit my uncle. When I got to his hospital room, his other children and his ex-wife were there. They were very surprised to see me and didn't quite know how to respond to me being there. I told them, "Merry Christmas," and then I gave my uncle his gift and told him why I was at his house that morning. He was awake and very happy to see me. I ended up hugging my cousins, and we all talked about old times. After that morning, I promised myself that I would never fall out of touch with my family again. With my mother and father now passed away, I knew it was up to me to keep our family connected. The funny thing was what that coffee cup that I gave to him said. It said, "Life is a gift." That morning, I was reminded of that for sure. As you mark these areas, make notes to yourself in the margins of your final typed draft, reminding you of the choices that you've made. For example, if you think you should speak at a faster pace during a certain sentence, make sure to write the word faster next to the area that you marked. After you've gone through your story and made these decisions, pair up with a partner again. Now, read your story to your partner, making sure to add the vocal techniques of pacing, tone, and emphasis. Perform for each other. Once you're done, ask your partner the following questions and be sure to write their feedback down in your notebook. Were you able to feel my changes in pacing? How about in the different tones I used? Could you tell which words and sentences I was emphasizing more? Do you think there are certain words or phrases that I need to emphasize even more? Do any of my choices distract you away from my story? Are there any moments that are too big? What were your 3 favorite choices I made with my voice? As we said earlier, you can also choose to use some elements of stagecraft to help tell your stories. But remember, you do not need to use them if you don't want to. But take a moment and think deeply about your story outline. Go over each section and ask yourself the following questions. What kind of costume piece would I use? For example, a scarf, a hat, or a shawl. What kind of props would I use? Maybe a candle, a book, a frying pan. If there were music or sound effects that I could use during a certain part of the story, what would they be? Are there photos or videos that I could use behind me on a screen? Well, it looks like we've come to the end of our storytelling workshop series. From here on out, you'll be working with each other and your coaches to put together your final storytelling presentation. You've put in the hard work, truly reflected on your life and experiences, taken risks that maybe you never thought you would have taken. And most importantly, you've supported your fellow workshop participants during your journey. Now, I'm going to leave you with some final thoughts about connecting with your audience. No matter how you decide to tell your story, you will have to connect with your audience in a meaningful way. There are 3 fundamental things to remember as you deliver your stories with confidence and clarity. Eye contact. You will most likely read your story from note cards or have a rough outline that you will follow. It's great if you memorize it, but that's not necessary at all to tell a great story. But as we use our note cards, we should try to make eye contact with our audience from time to time. This helps the audience stay connected with us. Also, try to connect with different areas of the audience. The right side, the left side, the front row, the back of the house. Volume. You'll most likely be speaking into a microphone. If you don't have one, the room you're sharing your story in will most likely be relatively small. Either way, you should be prepared to speak with a louder volume than your normal speaking voice. As you practice your delivery, try to make a habit out of being louder than you usually are. Confidence. In the end, the most important quality to have as a storyteller is confidence. Your story is sacred. You're sharing a piece of your soul with the world. This can be scary and might make you nervous. That's totally normal. But our job as storytellers is to have the courage to speak our truth and do it with all of our heart. Your confidence in yourself will speak volumes from the stage, and the audience will connect with you deeply as you make a lasting impact on their lives. Thank you for participating in Points of Entry and for having the courage to share a part of your life with the world, for speaking your truth, and for telling your story. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege to go on this journey with you. Now that you're on your way to completing your story, you'll have the opportunity to use storytelling as a way to open discussion and create dialogue in your community, to advocate for social justice and for a more inclusive and tolerant society, to challenge beliefs about the immigrant experience that are false or rooted in myth, and foster a stronger sense of our shared humanity.